Lily Fairchild stood before the grand, decaying facade of the abandoned theater, her breath visible in the cold London air. The building, a relic of the city's vibrant past, seemed to call to her, its once ornate architecture now marred by time and neglect. Dusty windows stared back at her like eyes, concealing secrets within. Despite its state, there was an undeniable allure to the place, a whisper of stories untold and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Stepping cautiously inside, Lily felt the chill of the air envelop her, a stark contrast to the bustling streets outside. The interior was a testament to forgotten glory, with seats cloaked in dust and curtains that hung in tatters. The faint scent of mildew mingled with the remnants of perfume and tobacco, as if the past lingered just beneath the surface. Her footsteps echoed in the cavernous hall, each sound amplifying the emptiness that surrounded her. She moved towards the stage, her eyes tracing the faded elegance of the proscenium arch. Here, beneath the dim glow of a few remaining light fixtures, she could almost see the ghosts of performances long past, laughter, applause, and the silent tears of actors who had graced the boards. Lily's curiosity was piqued by the theater's eerie beauty. She had always been drawn to places with history, believing that the walls could speak if one listened closely enough. As an aspiring actress, she felt a connection to the stage, a space where stories were born and lives were transformed, even if only for a fleeting moment. As she explored, she came across a faded poster pinned to a bulletin board near the entrance. It advertised a play, The Tragic Masquerade, starring Edward Sinclair, a name she recognized from tales of the theater's golden age. The play had been his last, cut short by a fire that had claimed his life and left the building scarred. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden chill, a draft that seemed to swirl around her, carrying with it a faint whisper. Lily froze, her senses heightened. She glanced around, searching for the source of the sound, but found nothing. The theater seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for her to acknowledge its secrets. Determined to uncover more, she decided to return with better lighting and perhaps a friend for company. As she left, she couldn't shake the feeling that the theater had welcomed her, its whispers promising more than just an empty stage. Lily felt a thrill of anticipation. She had found a place rich with history and perhaps more than a few ghosts. Returning to the theater a few days later, Lily came prepared. Armed with a torch and a notebook, she felt ready to delve deeper into the building's secrets. This time, she brought along Tom, a fellow actor and friend, whose curiosity matched her own. Together, they navigated the shadowy corridors and dust-covered seats, the torch's beam cutting through the darkness. As they explored, Tom recounted local legends about the theater. "They say it's haunted," he whispered, his voice carrying a mix of excitement and fear. "By Edward Sinclair himself. Some people claim to have seen his ghost, always dressed in his final role." Lily listened intently, her mind racing with the possibilities. The idea of a haunting fascinated her, not out of fear, but from a deep-rooted love for stories and mysteries. They reached the stage, where Lily's torchlight revealed the grandeur that had once been. She imagined the theater in its prime, filled with the energy of an eager audience and the passion of performers. As she moved to inspect the dressing rooms backstage, a sudden chill enveloped her, much like the one she had felt during her previous visit. She shivered, the air around her growing noticeably colder. Tom noticed it too, his breath visible in the dim light. "Did you feel that?" he asked, looking around nervously. Before Lily could respond, a faint whisper echoed through the room. It was soft, almost imperceptible, but undeniably real. The sound sent a shiver down her spine, yet it also ignited a spark of excitement. She focused, trying to discern the words, but they were lost in the eerie silence that followed. Suddenly, the torch flickered and dimmed, casting the room into near darkness. Panic briefly gripped them as they struggled to fix the light. In the flickering shadows, Lily thought she saw a figure. A man, dressed in an old-fashioned costume, standing at the far end of the room. He was just a silhouette, but his presence was unmistakable. "Do you see that?" she whispered, gripping Tom's arm. He nodded, eyes wide with fear. The figure seemed to watch them, unmoving, before slowly fading into the darkness as the torchlight steadied. The encounter left them both shaken. Tom was eager to leave, but Lily's curiosity was piqued more than ever. She couldn't shake the image of the figure, the whispers, or the sudden chill. As they hurried out, she resolved to return again, this time with more information and perhaps someone with experience in dealing with the supernatural. As they left the theater, the city outside seemed brighter, more alive, in stark contrast to the cold, mysterious world they had just left behind. Lily felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, her mind racing with questions. Who was the figure? Was it really Edward Sinclair, or just a trick of the light? One thing was clear. The theater held secrets, and Lily was determined to uncover them. The following week, Lily's fascination with the theater's mysteries led her to the British Library, where she hoped to find more information about Edward Sinclair and the events surrounding his untimely death. Tom, still shaken by their encounter, opted out, leaving Lily to pursue her investigation alone. Lily spent hours sifting through old newspapers and theater records, piecing together a fragmented story. Edward Sinclair had been a celebrated actor, known for his charisma and dramatic flair. His last performance, The Tragic Masquerade, had been widely anticipated, but the theater burned down on its opening night, with Sinclair trapped inside. The cause of the fire was officially deemed an accident, but rumors of foul play had persisted. Intrigued by these whispers of conspiracy, Lily sought out more detailed accounts. She discovered mentions of a rival actor, Reginald Northcote, who had reportedly been envious of Sinclair's success. Northcote had disappeared shortly after the fire, fueling speculation about his involvement. Determined to uncover the truth, Lily decided to consult a paranormal expert. She contacted Mr. Hastings, a well-known investigator of supernatural phenomena, hoping he could shed light on her experiences at the theater. Despite her initial skepticism, she couldn't ignore the uncanny occurrences and the shadowy figure they had seen. Meeting Mr. Hastings at a quiet cafe, Lily recounted her experiences. The seasoned investigator listened attentively, his interest piqued by the details. "I've heard of the old theater," he said, sipping his tea thoughtfully. "It's notorious among those who study the paranormal, but sightings of Edward Sinclair are rare. You're fortunate to have witnessed such a clear manifestation." Lily leaned forward, her curiosity intense. "Do you think his spirit is trying to communicate? Why would he still be there after all these years?" Mr. Hastings considered her question. Spirits often linger due to unresolved issues. It could be guilt, anger, or a desire for justice. In Sinclair's case, it might be all three. The circumstances of his death were unusual, and if foul play was involved, his spirit could be seeking closure. The conversation deepened Lily's resolve. She felt a growing responsibility to help uncover the truth, not just for her own curiosity, but for the restless spirit she believed she had encountered. Mr. Hastings agreed to accompany her back to the theater, to investigate further and perhaps communicate with the ghost. As they planned their next steps, Lily felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The prospect of confronting a ghost was daunting, yet the thought of unraveling a decades-old mystery filled her with a sense of purpose. The theater, with its haunted halls and spectral whispers, had drawn her into its narrative, and she was determined to see it through. With Mr. Hastings' expertise, Lily hoped to bring peace to Edward Sinclair's troubled spirit. Together, they would delve deeper into the theater's dark history, uncovering secrets long buried in the ashes of the past. Armed with a renewed sense of purpose, Lily and Mr. Hastings returned to the old theater. This time, they came prepared with equipment, cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic field detectors. Their goal was to capture evidence of paranormal activity and, if possible, communicate with Edward Sinclair's spirit. The theater felt even more oppressive than before, its shadows deeper, and the air heavier with anticipation. As they set up their equipment, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every creak and rustle seemed amplified, adding to the tension. Mr. Hastings, calm and methodical, explained their plan. "We'll focus on the stage and the backstage area," he said, adjusting a camera. "These are the most likely spots for activity, given Sinclair's connection to the theater." As they began their investigation, Mr. Hastings shared more about Sinclair's final days. Sinclair was at the height of his career, but there were rumors of jealousy, particularly from Reginald Northcote. Northcote was a rising star, but he could never quite match Sinclair's charisma. Some say he was obsessed, even dangerous. Lily listened intently, piecing together the tragic narrative. And Northcote disappeared after the fire? Yes, vanished without a trace. Some speculated he fled the country. Others believed he died in the fire, though his body was never found. Mr. Hastings paused, scanning the room with an EMF detector. If Sinclair's spirit is here, it might be tied to unresolved feelings towards Northcote. The air suddenly grew colder, and the EMF detector beeped. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine as Mr. Hastings motioned for silence. They stood still, listening. A faint whisper echoed through the theater, barely audible but unmistakably real. Lily's heart pounded as she strained to hear the words. The whisper grew clearer, repeating a name, Reginald. The voice was tinged with sadness and anger, an echo of unresolved grief. Mr. Hastings nodded, his expression grave. It's Sinclair. He's trying to tell us something about Northcote. They followed the voice to the dressing rooms, where the cold intensified. There, they discovered an old, charred diary hidden behind a loose brick. The diary belonged to Sinclair, its pages filled with his thoughts and experiences. The final entries were particularly telling, filled with fear and suspicion towards Northcote. Reading aloud, Lily's voice trembled. He wrote about feeling threatened, about overhearing plans to sabotage the play. Sinclair suspected Northcote wanted him out of the picture, permanently. As they delved deeper into the diary, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Sinclair's suspicions, the fire, and Northcote's disappearance painted a picture of betrayal and jealousy. It was becoming clear that Sinclair's death was no accident. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, and the EMF detector spiked. Lily and Mr. Hastings turned to see a faint figure at the end of the hall. Edward Sinclair, his expression a mix of sorrow and anger. He pointed towards the stage, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. Lily's breath caught as the ghostly figure mouthed a single word, justice. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, leaving the theater in silence. The encounter left them both shaken, but also determined. They had a clearer understanding of the tragedy that had unfolded, and a mission to bring Sinclair's story to light. With the diary in hand and a renewed sense of urgency, they left the theater, planning their next steps. The truth about Sinclair's death had to be revealed, and his spirit needed closure. The past had reached out to them, and they were ready to listen. In the days that followed, Lily and Mr. Hastings pored over Sinclair's diary, piecing together a clearer picture of the events leading up to the fateful fire. The entries revealed a talented but troubled man, haunted by fears of professional jealousy and personal betrayal. Sinclair had been aware of Northcote's animosity, and his final days were marked by increasing paranoia and dread. The diary's revelations were accompanied by strange occurrences. At night, Lily would hear whispers and faint music, as if the theater's past was trying to reach her even outside its walls. Meanwhile, Mr. Hastings reported unexplained cold spots and flickering lights at his home, further convincing them of Sinclair's restless spirit. Driven by a sense of responsibility, Lily and Mr. Hastings returned to the theater, this time determined to communicate directly with Sinclair's ghost. They set up a seance on the stage, surrounded by the tools of their investigation. The air was thick with anticipation, the darkness pressing in around them. As they began the seance, Mr. Hastings called out to Sinclair, asking for a sign of his presence. The air grew colder, and the candles they had lit flickered violently. Suddenly, the stage lights, long dormant, burst into life, illuminating the theater in a ghostly glow. A misty figure began to form in the center of the stage. It was Edward Sinclair, his visage clearer than before, marked by an expression of deep sorrow and anger. He raised a hand, pointing towards the orchestra pit, where an old, charred trunk sat unnoticed until now. Lily and Mr. Hastings exchanged a look of shock and curiosity. They approached the trunk cautiously, opening it to reveal a collection of props and costumes, remnants of Sinclair's last performance. Among them, they found a letter, partially burned but still legible. It was addressed to Sinclair, from Reginald Northcote. The letter detailed a plan to discredit Sinclair, accusing him of misdeeds that would tarnish his reputation. It spoke of professional sabotage, of spreading rumors that would undermine Sinclair's standing in the theater community. The tone was bitter, filled with envy and resentment. As Lily read the letter aloud, Sinclair's spirit seemed to become more agitated. The lights flickered, and a cold wind swept through the theater. Mr. Hastings, sensing the rising tension, spoke directly to the ghost. "Edward, we understand now. You were wronged, betrayed by someone you trusted. We will ensure that your story is told, that justice is sought." The ghost's expression softened, a mix of relief and lingering sadness crossing his spectral features. He nodded slowly, then began to fade, leaving the theater in darkness once more. The seance had taken an emotional toll on both Lily and Mr. Hastings, but they felt a sense of accomplishment, having uncovered the truth behind Sinclair's death. With the new evidence in hand, they resolved to share Sinclair's story with the world. The diary, the letter, and the haunting itself were compelling pieces of a tragic puzzle, one that they hoped would bring peace to Sinclair's troubled spirit. As they packed up their equipment, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The theater, with its secrets and shadows, had more stories to tell. And as long as there were mysteries to uncover, she knew she would be drawn back, seeking answers in the whispers of the past. Lily and Mr. Hastings knew that simply uncovering the truth about Edward Sinclair's death wasn't enough. They needed to ensure that his story was heard and that justice, albeit belated, was served. The discovery of the letter from Reginald Northcote provided a crucial piece of evidence that could potentially clear Sinclair's name and reveal the extent of Northcote's malice. To bring this story to light, they decided to stage a public event at the theater, a live seance combined with a performance that would dramatize the events leading up to the tragic fire. This event, they hoped, would attract not only local attention but also media coverage, thereby giving Sinclair's story the platform it needed. The preparations were intensive. Lily, drawing on her experience as an actress, took charge of organizing the performance, while Mr. Hastings handled the seance and technical aspects. They recruited a small team of actors and technicians willing to work on short notice, intrigued by the story and the prospect of being part of something unique. As the day of the event approached, the theater buzzed with activity. The stage was set, the props carefully arranged, and the old charred trunk with Sinclair's belongings prominently displayed. Lily felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She was about to perform in a theater known more for its ghosts than its audiences, and the stakes felt incredibly high. On the night of the event, the theater filled with a small but curious audience, including local journalists and a few paranormal enthusiasts. The air was charged with anticipation, and as the lights dimmed, Lily stepped onto the stage, ready to introduce the night's proceedings. She spoke briefly about Edward Sinclair, his tragic end, and the rumors of his haunting. She explained that they were here not just to witness a performance, but to honor Sinclair's legacy and seek closure for his restless spirit. Her words were met with hushed murmurs, the audience clearly intrigued. The performance began, recounting the events leading to the fateful night of the fire. The actors portrayed Sinclair and Northcote, bringing to life the jealousy and ambition that had ultimately led to betrayal. The atmosphere grew tense as the story unfolded, the audience engrossed in the drama and the eerie setting. As the performance reached its climax, with Sinclair's final moments before the fire, Mr. Hastings initiated the seance. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the candles flickered, casting dancing shadows across the stage. The audience watched in rapt silence as Mr. Hastings called out to Sinclair's spirit, inviting him to share his truth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the stage lights flickered, and a chill swept through the room. The figure of Edward Sinclair appeared, misty but distinct, standing center stage. The audience gasped, some in fear, others in awe, as the ghostly figure pointed towards the charred trunk, now illuminated by a single spotlight. Lily stepped forward, holding the letter from Northcote, and read it aloud. Her voice carried the weight of Sinclair's betrayal and the injustice he had suffered. As she finished, the ghost of Sinclair seemed to nod in acknowledgement, a gesture of gratitude and release. The lights flickered again, and Sinclair's figure slowly dissipated, leaving the theater in silence. The audience erupted into applause, some moved to tears by the poignant end to the evening. For Lily and Mr. Hastings, the event had been a success, a fitting tribute to a misunderstood artist and a vindication of their efforts. As the crowd dispersed, many lingered, discussing what they had witnessed. The event had not only shed light on Sinclair's story, but had also revived interest in the theater itself, hinting at a new chapter for the once-forgotten venue. For Lily, the night felt like the culmination of a journey, yet she knew that her connection to the theater and its ghosts was far from over. As she and Mr. Hastings packed up, they talked about the future, about other haunted places and stories yet to be told. The past, it seemed, always had more to reveal, and they were ready to listen. The success of the public event bolstered Lily and Mr. Hastings' determination to delve even deeper into the mysteries of the old theater. While the performance and seance had brought some measure of peace to Edward Sinclair's spirit, they both felt there were still unanswered questions, particularly surrounding Reginald Northcote's disappearance and the full extent of the betrayal. They decided to conduct a private seance, just the two of them, hoping that a more intimate setting might encourage clearer communication with Sinclair's spirit. They returned to the theater late one evening, the atmosphere even more charged with anticipation now that the building had witnessed its first significant gathering in years. They set up the seance in the same spot where Sinclair's ghost had appeared during the performance. The charred trunk, now seen as a vessel of Sinclair's last moments, was placed at the center, surrounded by candles casting a soft, flickering light. Mr. Hastings began by calling out to Sinclair, using a respectful and measured tone. "Edward Sinclair, we are here to seek your guidance once more. We want to help you find the justice you deserve. Please, if you can, show us the way." The air grew colder, and the candles flickered, their flames dancing erratically. Lily shivered, feeling a presence surrounding them. The EMF detector beeped, indicating a strong electromagnetic field. They both knew Sinclair was near. A mist began to form above the trunk, slowly coalescing into the figure of Edward Sinclair. His ghostly visage was clearer than ever, his expression a mix of sorrow and determination. He pointed towards the trunk again, and Lily felt compelled to open it once more. As she rummaged through the old costumes and props, her hand brushed against something solid and metallic. She pulled out a small, ornate box, its surface blackened by the fire but otherwise intact. Inside, they found a locket containing a miniature portrait of a woman and a lock of hair. Lily showed the locket to Mr. Hastings, who examined it closely. "This must have belonged to someone important to Sinclair," he mused. "Perhaps this woman holds the key to understanding his final moments." Suddenly, the ghost of Sinclair spoke, his voice a faint whisper that seemed to echo in the vast emptiness of the theater. "Isabella, my love, betrayed?" Lily's heart ached at the pain in his voice. She focused on the portrait in the locket, wondering who Isabella was and how she fit into the tragic story. "Edward," she asked softly, "who was Isabella? What happened to her?" The ghost's form flickered, his expression growing more anguished. "Northcote took her," lied Fire. Mr. Hastings looked at Lily, his eyes wide with understanding. "Isabella must have been Sinclair's lover, and Northcote used her to get to Sinclair. Perhaps she was the one who lit the fire, manipulated by Northcote." The revelation was both heartbreaking and infuriating. They realized that Sinclair's death was the result of a complex web of deceit and manipulation, with Isabella caught in the middle. It explained the depth of Sinclair's sorrow and his need for justice. Lily and Mr. Hastings vowed to uncover more about Isabella and Northcote. They knew they had to search historical records, trace any remaining descendants, and perhaps even find Isabella's resting place. The journey ahead was daunting, but they were more determined than ever. As the ghost of Sinclair slowly faded, his expression softened, a silent thank you in his eyes. The seance had provided crucial clues, and Lily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She and Mr. Hastings packed up their equipment, the weight of their discovery settling in. Outside the theater, the city of London seemed to pulse with life, unaware of the drama unfolding within its historic walls. For Lily and Mr. Hastings, the night marked a turning point. They had taken significant steps towards uncovering the truth, and they knew their journey was far from over. Determined to uncover the full truth behind Edward Sinclair's tragic end, Lily and Mr. Hastings delved deeper into the archives, focusing their research on the enigmatic Isabella and the elusive Reginald Northcote. They scoured public records, theater archives, and old newspapers, piecing together a narrative that had long been buried under layers of scandal and time. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a series of articles and personal correspondences that revealed Isabella's full name, Isabella Fairchild. The name sent a jolt through Lily, as it was also her own surname. The coincidence seemed too strong to ignore, suggesting a possible familial connection that made the investigation even more personal. Further research revealed that Isabella had been a promising young actress, much like Lily, and had fallen deeply in love with Edward Sinclair. Their romance, however, had been tainted by jealousy and deceit, primarily orchestrated by Reginald Northcote, who had harbored unrequited feelings for Isabella and professional envy towards Sinclair. Northcote, they learned, had manipulated Isabella, feeding her lies about Sinclair's fidelity and intentions. Under his influence, Isabella had become desperate, believing that Sinclair was about to abandon her. On the night of the fire, Northcote had convinced her to confront Sinclair with devastating news, her pregnancy, which she feared would end her budding career. The confrontation, however, spiraled out of control, leading to a tragic misunderstanding. The most shocking discovery came from a hidden journal found among Northcote's personal belongings, now kept in a private collection. The journal detailed Northcote's descent into obsession, revealing that he had orchestrated the fire, intending to frame Isabella and ruin Sinclair's life. The plan had gone horribly wrong, resulting in Sinclair's death and Northcote's disappearance. Isabella, devastated by the tragedy and manipulated by Northcote's lies, had gone into hiding, eventually succumbing to grief and despair. Her whereabouts after the fire remained a mystery, but the records suggested she had died alone, far from the city she once sought to conquer. The weight of these revelations was heavy. For Lily, the connection to Isabella was both startling and poignant. She couldn't help but wonder if the theater had drawn her in part, because of this hidden familial link. It was as if the past had reached out to her, seeking resolution and closure. With this new information, Lily and Mr. Hastings returned to the theater one final time. They brought with them a framed portrait of Isabella, a gesture of remembrance and recognition for the woman who had been caught in such a tragic web of deceit. In a quiet, reflective ceremony, they placed the portrait on the stage alongside Sinclair's belongings. Lily spoke softly, addressing the spirits they believed still lingered. "Edward, Isabella, we've uncovered your story. The world will know the truth about what happened here. We hope this brings you peace." The theater was silent, but the air felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. For a brief moment, Lily thought she saw a soft glow near the portrait, a gentle acknowledgement of their efforts. Whether it was a trick of the light or something more, she couldn't be sure, but she chose to believe it was a sign of gratitude. The investigation had come to a close, and the theater, once a place of tragedy and secrets, now felt like a sanctuary of history and memory. Lily and Mr. Hastings had not only uncovered a scandalous chapter of the theater's past, but had also laid to rest the restless spirits of its most famous residents. As they left the theater, Lily felt a deep sense of closure and fulfillment. The experience had been a profound journey into the past, revealing not just the stories of Edward and Isabella, but also a connection to her own heritage. The theater, with its ghosts and history, had given her more than just a mystery to solve. It had given her a deeper understanding of her own place in a long, storied lineage. With the truth of Edward Sinclair and Isabella Fairchild's tragic story unveiled, Lily and Mr. Hastings took steps to share their findings with the public. They published articles detailing the events they had uncovered, drawing on the diary entries, personal letters, and journals that had pieced together the complex narrative. The response was overwhelming, sparking renewed interest in the old theater and its storied past. The theater, long shrouded in mystery and neglect, became a site of historical significance. The tale of Sinclair and Isabella captured the public's imagination, blending the elements of romance, tragedy, and the supernatural. Journalists, historians, and theater enthusiasts flocked to the site, eager to experience the place where such a poignant story had unfolded. Lily, deeply moved by the personal connection to Isabella, felt a profound sense of responsibility towards the theater. She worked with local historians to organize an exhibition, showcasing the artifacts they had found, including Sinclair's diary, the locket, and the portrait of Isabella. The exhibition also featured a reconstruction of the fateful night, bringing to life the dramatic events in a way that honored the memory of those involved. Mr. Hastings, meanwhile, reflected on the experience with a newfound respect for the mysteries of the past. His skepticism had been challenged by the undeniable presence of Sinclair's spirit and the powerful emotions tied to the theater. The investigation had deepened his understanding of the paranormal, and he continued his work with a more open mind and heart. The story of Sinclair and Isabella also resonated with the public, touching on universal themes of love, jealousy, and redemption. Many saw in their tale a cautionary story about the dangers of ambition and obsession, while others viewed it as a testament to the enduring power of love and memory. For Lily, the experience was transformative. She had not only helped to uncover a significant piece of history, but had also discovered a deeper connection to her heritage. The realization that she was possibly related to Isabella Fairchild gave her a sense of belonging and continuity, tying her personal journey to the rich tapestry of the past. As the exhibition drew to a close, Lily and Mr. Hastings stood in the theater, now filled with light and life, a stark contrast to the dark, abandoned place they had first encountered. They reflected on their journey, the challenges they had faced, and the mysteries they had solved. Lily knew that her work with the theater wasn't finished. The place had more stories to tell, and she felt a calling to continue exploring its history and preserving its legacy. She and Mr. Hastings discussed plans for future projects, including a possible book that would delve deeper into the theater's past and the lives of those who had been part of its story. As they prepared to leave, Lily received a letter from a distant relative who had read about the investigation. The letter hinted at other family connections to the theater world, suggesting that her journey into her family's past was far from over. It was a tantalizing prospect, one that promised new adventures and discoveries. For now, though, Lily felt a deep sense of contentment and accomplishment. The story of Edward Sinclair and Isabella Fairchild had been told, their spirits laid to rest, and the old theater given a new lease on life. It was a fitting end to a remarkable journey, and yet, Lily sensed it was also just the beginning. The theater's ghosts had shared their secrets, and in doing so, had transformed the lives of those who listened. As Lily and Mr. Hastings left the theater, they carried with them the echoes of the past, a reminder that history is never truly silent, and that every story, no matter how buried, deserves to be told. If you're eager to explore more mysteries and adventures beyond our own world, click on the video appearing on your screen now. Dive into another thrilling sci-fi story from our Sci-Fi Story Vault and continue your voyage into the unknown. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales from the cosmos. The universe is vast, and its stories are waiting for you.